You know what's wild? Most people are still overpaying for car insurance just because it's a pain to switch. That's why there's Jerry. Jerry's the only app that compares rates from over 50 insurers in minutes and helps you switch fast with no spam calls or hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Before you renew your car insurance policy, do yourself a favor. Download the Jerry app or head to jerry.ai/Libsyn. That's JERRY.ai/LIBSYN.
Hello and welcome to episode 321 of the Clean Energy Show. Coming to you from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I'm Brian Stockton.
Well, I tune in each week just to find out where you are, Brian, and I'm James Whittingham at the usual place. And our forests are burning here in Canada and annoying Americans. I'm sorry I didn't write a joke here, Brian. I was busy raking my forest.
Japanese automaker Honda has just released an autonomous EV. The catch? It's not a car, it's a lawnmower. And no, Honda fans, you can't drive it on the road, which is too bad, because it costs as much as a car.
The United States government took climate data offline and laid off climate scientists put it back up on their own webpage. What will they do with the rest of their free time? Probably sit by their pools because it's awfully hot this year.
Alberta, Canada has announced it will stop changing its clocks twice a year. Now most of Western Canada will be on daylight time year-round and will no longer be changing their clocks. So it's time to party like it's 1908 because that's when all this clock-changing madness started.
All right, it's now cheaper in China to take a taxi to your destination than to take your paid-off gas car on the same trip. Soon it'll be cheaper to fly to Montreal on an electric airplane than it is to use Brian's teleportation machine.
All that and more on this edition of the Clean Energy Show.
Well, it looks beautiful in Montreal today. How are you doing there?
Yes, I'm good. It might rain later, but it's been lovely so far. Just here for 3 nights in Montreal. I'm going to see David Letterman.
And why haven't you booked him as a guest on our show? I don't think you're doing your job properly, Brian.
I am not, although, I'm here at the Queen Elizabeth Hotel. It's one of Montreal's famous hotels, and I'm kind of expecting to run into him into the lobby or something like that.
Have a portable microphone handy or something. I mean,
yeah, no, Letterman, he did a live show in Vancouver a couple of months ago, and I missed that one, and I was kind of kicking myself because he doesn't really do live shows. So this popped up. It only was announced a couple of weeks ago, so it was kind of a last-minute decision to come here and see him. Might be my only chance to see him. Dave is 79 now.
Is he?
But
oh, dear.
I watched his very first late night show in 1982, and I've been a fan ever since, and I think you have too.
I have. I had a comedy career, sort of, and he was a big influence on me, I realized at one point.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the things I like to point out, of course, Dave is known for being a comedian, and that's what he is, but I really think of him as a broadcaster, and I think he was a huge influence on me as a broadcaster. I think if I have any skills as a podcaster, I think I got a lot of that from Letterman. Like I just kind of learned how to talk from watching Letterman, learned how to talk to people. And, he had great skill as a broadcaster.
You've been watching Jeopardy again. I don't know where you get the time because you're constantly traveling, it seems, but
I would never miss Jeopardy. So James, it's time to play Jeopardy.
Cars and trucks, 1,000.
This electric vehicle manufacturer derived its name from the words Indian River. Khalid.
What is Rivian?
That's right.
Oh, okay. Did not know that one. No.
Yeah,
I can't think that fast, Brian. I was moving in that direction, but honestly, I'm not a good Jeopardy player because my mind is a little slower. Consider it drunk.
Yeah. And yeah, as I get older, that's the key problem with my Jeopardy skills is the time it takes for me to think of the answer. Anyway, there was another electric car related question on the same episode. So let's roll that one. This one came with a picture, which
the Bentayga,
our audience can't
an SUV
necessarily
from this British luxury manufacturer, has a plug-in hybrid option. Khalid.
What is Rolls-Royce?
No.
Bentley.
Caleb.
What is Aston Martin?
That's also incorrect. Patience.
What is Jaguar?
No, everybody loses the same amount of money. What is Bentley?
It looks like a Bentley. See, Brian, I'm not as dumb as people say. I could have got a Jeopardy question better than those guys.
Yes, this was a picture-based clue, so they had a picture to help everybody out. So yeah, I got this one. It looks like a Bentley to me. It's a plug-in hybrid. Oh, and I wanted to mention, so I'm staying here at the Queen Elizabeth Hotel in Montreal, and this is where John Lennon and Yoko Ono recorded Give Peace a Chance. This is where they had their bed in back in 1969. So I'm not the first person to do some recording in this hotel.
Okay. Well, almost. I mean, you're second, probably. Yeah. Well, are you having a bed in yourself or for climate, or what's going on with that?
Well, I'm, having a breakfast in bed, if that counts.
Oh, that's nice. Wow. It's good to be Brian Stockton.
The other thing I wanted to point out is I made 2 films with Dick Assman, who was made famous by David Letterman. So that's my other connection to David Letterman. There's this guy from our town, Regina, who became famous because his name was Dick Assman, and Letterman put him on the air. And ended up making 2 films with Dick Assman. So that's the closest I've ever got to Letterman is working with Dick, and he was a lovely guy. He passed away a few years ago. He's in My Dinner with Generation X, which James is also in. That's on YouTube. He has a small part as the Oracle, and he's
Did he enjoy doing that? Did he become TV savvy after so many appearances on Letterman?
No, not really. I mean, he was a bit nervous about this one, My Dinner with Generation X, because he actually had a couple of lines to say.
Yeah.
Overall, I think, he enjoyed it. It was a super nice guy.
So I remember going to the football games here in town and walking by his gas station near the stadium. And the gas station brand at the time would put the manager's name on the building. And I said to my friend, someone should send that to Letterman. and like maybe a year later, he was on Letterman. So
they got it from a news story. They used to do a thing called Small Town News, and his name appeared I think it was an ad for the gas station. So I think that's how.
Oh, somebody sent the ad in. Okay.
Yeah.
But they did elaborate skits, with singers and Broadway dancers and all kinds of different things. And he was kind of a bashful, shy person.
Yeah. And he talked to him on the phone a couple of times, and then eventually they flew him to New York, and he was on The Real Show.
Yeah, they kept beating it with beat that dead horse until there's no more comedy in it. My swimming pool is an permanent above ground pool, 18 feet in diameter. It is my pride and joy. Not this summer, although I couldn't go in it until August because of my operation. I can't expose myself to pool chemicals and bacteria. Yeah. So I wouldn't have been able to enjoy it anyway. But anyway, we had this hailstorm in June, if you're new to the show, and it wiped out my siding and my cars. And the car is a bit of an issue because when we took it into the dealership to get it evaluated for the insurance, they did not evaluate the speaker and the audio system not working since the hailstorm. They said that has to go to a different place. So it's just crap. So I turned on my pool solar heater, and it spurted water on 10 different panels. So it's about $1,600 in damage. And I wasn't able to get water through it until recently, till I figured out a way to, through determination, to get the pump to suck the water from the bottom of the failing pool. And smoke has arrived. It's very, we have the Clean Energy Show air quality monitor here for monitoring pollution, but it's very handy for James to see is it safe to go outside? Because the wafts of air changes greatly fast. Sometimes it improves and gets really bad and gets better depending on the forest fire smoke. So we are finally getting smoke here, and we'll talk about that more in the show because we're doing fine here, relatively speaking. I mean, it's not particularly safe to go out and breathe this crap, but it's a lot better than what some cities like Toronto, Washington, D.C., even New York City's got a little bit of it. How is it there in Montreal? Are the skies gray at all from smoke?
No, it's still good here in Montreal. I so far have escaped any smoke this summer, but yeah, we'll see how long that lasts.
Okay.
So, first story from Electric. Honda has a new EV, but it is not a car. It is a lawnmower. And this is a large commercial riding mower, and it's not cheap. It's going to be $33,000 US. But it's a self-driving lawnmower. So the idea is you can drive the route once and then it will remember it, and it will use sensors and AI to see the path and GPS as well. They're building this in North Carolina, and the U.S. lawnmower market is a $2 billion market, which is wild. Like, it's amazing how much money we spend on our lawns here in North America. We've talked about that before. It's typically a kind of a wasteful thing that we do here, especially if they're loud, polluting gas lawnmowers. So, always a good thing to switch to electric. It says in the article that Honda's commercial customers...
Wait a minute. I've got a microphone out the window, and this is live lawn mowing going on behind my house right now. You could smell the gas, and I live in a place that has 3 different types of public lawn mowing going on. And one is, there's a park by a school, so it's a local park. They mow that every couple of days if it rains heavily and it's warm. Like they mow it right to the ground like it's a golf course or something. Like, it seems unnecessary. Then there's a pipeline behind my house. Well, several pipelines. So there's a pipeline easement of about 70 yards or something like that. 70 meters if you're not American. And they mow that about once a month with a tractor, kind of what you might see on the side of a highway. They just beat down the weeds, and it's mostly thick, coarse grass, but there are a lot of weeds in there too. And that goes right up to my fence line. So I open my back gate, which I did yesterday because I've got a rabbit in my yard, a little baby rabbit that's growing up. And I think it might want to have sex soon. So I'm trying to open the gate and get it out of the yard because it's freaking out my family. Too many Monty Python movies watched in this family. And then there's a boulevard. I live on a boulevard, which goes to nowhere, but it's a boulevard. So they mow the boulevard. And so there's constant lawn mowing in my life, Brian. So this story really resonates with me, is my point.
Yeah. And we are moving to a cleaner, quieter state of lawn mowing with electric mowers. And it says here in the article, Honda's commercial customers are increasingly demanding quieter, cleaner equipment, with more than 100 U.S. cities and counties already adopting restrictions or outright bans on gas-powered landscaping equipment, and many more enforcing strict noise ordinances that are effectively forcing contractors to consider battery power for their mowers. Not so much around here. I don't see a lot of electric mowing going on, but I don't know. It's something worth looking into. Sometimes these things are eligible for local utility or government tax incentives. So have a look at that. And then, hopefully this will lead to Honda actually making more electric cars.
Well, the people doing that mowing are mostly university students with summer jobs that last 3 months or so. Sometimes 4 months for training. So I suspect one day I'm going to look out and there's not going to be a person operating that mower. But then they have to pick it up and take it to another location, so I don't know how that works. Do they just sit around on a chair drinking lemonade and watch the mower go?
That's true, and there's obviously safety considerations. You don't want mowers running around amok, mowing things they shouldn't mow, like small children or rabbits.
Rabbits. There's lots of rabbits in that, and they poison the gophers, but they're coming back. I found one in my yard the other day. Yeah, my yard is being taken over by wildlife. So woodland creatures are moving in because I'm not there. I'm sickly and recovering and weak, and I'm not in my yard mowing things and building things and fixing things and floating in my pool and doing whatever. Temperatures this year are hot in Canada. Brian, we talked earlier about how there wasn't a fire season. There wasn't a lot of forest fires earlier. That's changed. I mean, some of the worst fires, like the Fort McMurray fire, that was near the oil sands in Alberta, that started like a couple of days into May, which is really early for Canada. Yeah. But what's happening is climate change is having less snow and faster snow melt, so it's not absorbed. Usually the snow melts slowly, and we've seen these changes happening in very short order. Like, I'm questioning whether I should put my pool back or maybe put in a gas heater or something, because it's going to be overcast all the time from forest fire smoke. And also just the weather patterns are not what they used to be. We used to have sun galore for all summer long here on the Canadian prairies. The mountains affect that are, 700 kilometers west of here. But temperatures during the fire season in Canada, which is May to September, have risen a bit more than 2 degrees Celsius in the last 50 years. That's 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit. And climate change doesn't start fires, but it can make more lightning events, which start fires in remote areas, and they can't be easy to contain. Persistent hot and dry conditions can increase flammable fuel load, so you're drying out that stuff that's on the bottom of the forest. And no, you can't rake it. I'll get to that in a minute. Making fires that do occur more severe. So what happens is most of Canada doesn't have anywhere, most of our boreal forest doesn't have people anywhere near it. Sometimes there's an indigenous community or something like that near it that are maybe flying, but a lot of our population is near the U.S. border where there's roads and things, and British Columbia has a lot of mountains and roads and tourism, and there's roads there. But a lot of our boreal forest is just off on its own. So when the lightning hits it, there's not an immediate fire. It can smolder on the ground for days, and then suddenly it becomes an raging inferno before anyone even notices it. And by then, it's so hot that this fire weather that's creating this stuff now is burning on the crowns of the trees, and the heat is so hot, it's drying out, 100 yards ahead of it or 100 meters ahead of it, and it's starting the fire there because it's so hot. So you can't stop that. You just can't stop that once they get going. You just have to let them burn and try and control and save areas where it does, intersect with human population and infrastructure. So nationally, 50% of them are human caused in Canada, which is pretty common for forest fires. But the lightning caused fires accounted for the majority of the total area burned. In fact, 80 to 90% of it was those lightning fires that I talked about. And it's because human-caused fire are usually closer to roads and humans and infrastructure. If you need a human to cause a human-caused fire, and they are easier to detect and easier to reach. Lightning-caused fires are often much harder to detect. They can take days post-strike to start, and they cluster and they're often in remote areas, which are hard to get to. And Canada's forests in Canada represents 40% of the country's landmass. So 40% of Canada's forest, 9% of the world's total forest cover is Canadian, and 24% of boreal forests, which is northern forests, are in Canada. So there's a lot. Most of the area is remote with nothing around. 20 years ago, the multi-decade average burned by wildfires in Canada hovered consistently around 2 million hectares per year. Consistently for decades, up to 20 years ago. But 2023 saw 17.6 million hectares burned instead of 2.
Yeah.
That is very stark. 2025 only had 8.4 million hectares burned. That was a good year, and that was still 4 times the decades-long average. And 2026, it's going to be nasty. It's going to be terrible. And you know what? The forecast is for heat. It is very hot here. I used to use my air conditioner 2 to 3 nights a year because I would get fans on. It would get cool here at night. It's very consistently used now. So Canada's forests are the size of all these countries combined. This is what you want to rake here. All these countries combined: Portugal, France, Spain, Germany, Poland, United Kingdom, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark, Italy, Greece, Netherlands, Switzerland, Austria, and Belgium. All those countries would make up the size of a Canadian forest. And consider that there's not even people around those forests most of the time. So we are annoying American politicians who, Trump just put 50% tariffs on stuff in Canada. He's annoyed by that, and there's nothing we can do about it. There is, very little. If you want to do something about it, America, turn off your goddamn emissions. America primarily is the number one causer of climate change for emissions historically, right? So they're blaming us. It's just, I know there's a drinking game out there in our community where I call someone stupid and people drink. Well, you're stupid. Republican politicians calling on Canada to do something, you're stupid. Look at a map. It's not hard. Look at a map. Look at the roads on the map. Look where there aren't roads. Look where there are population. Look where there is forest. You can't rake that, you idiots. It's just not possible. And this gets worse from here, which is very sad. It gets worse from here no matter what. But we have to make it so it doesn't get catastrophic. We have to make it so that, humanity can get through this. We have to do something. We need government policy to strengthen everything we can do. We can't just rely on economics, which are going strong for clean energy, but there has to be government policy. And of course, the United States government, federal government, is going completely against climate policy in any and every way they possibly can, even in extremely unreasonable ways. But enjoy the smoke, people. It's bad. And if Cat Lady on our Patreon was asking about air purifiers, and I have got my Omega 2, which I have in the comment section on our Patreon. I like it. There's newer versions of it. It was a couple $100 on sale. So it frequently goes on sale for a couple of $100. It is even more expensive than that. But it works. If you are stuck for doing something, you can get a good quality furnace filter of the appropriate size and tape it onto a box fan. This is what charity organization in British Columbia started doing after a child died of asthma. And I know with Chicago and other places reaching 700 on the air quality index, children died. Children with asthma died. There's no question about it. People died. Old people died. People with vulnerable illnesses and COPD. There's lots of deaths that are not going to be reported directly because of this air quality. So you got to do what you can. And that might be a lot more economical option, is to take a box fan, which are usually pretty affordable if you don't already have one laying around somewhere. And then you get a good quality furnace filter and you strap it onto the front. You can look that up on YouTube and find out how to do that. It's pretty basic, but it blows the air in your house through the filter and it takes out the particulate matter.
Yeah, we keep the windows closed and the air intake off when it gets smoky. So far we don't have an indoor air purifier, but I've definitely been thinking it
seems like something to invest in. It's going to be a company of the future, the technology of the future, unfortunately.
Yes. And on to Europe. This is from Bloomberg. This is further to climate change. Why Europeans are finally warming up to air conditioning. And the main thing I got from this article was something I hadn't really thought about, but maybe had forgotten about. There's kind of a stigma in Europe against air conditioning.
And we're hearing a lot about that in the culture wars online that are getting covered in news stories. Like, I didn't know that either. I didn't know that there was a stigma against it. I can understand it because you didn't need it for generations. But now I think you have to say that you do, especially if you're old. At least allow it for old people and vulnerable people who are ill, because the climate is not what it was. It is just not. And yes, America was hotter, by the way. I will defend them in that sense. They have hotter places, obviously, like the South and Arizona and other places would benefit from air conditioning. And this wasn't the same in Europe, though. Now it is, though. Now you're hitting 40 degrees.
Yeah, and I remember being in London a couple of years ago and talking about it on the podcast. We would take Ubers, and the Ubers would just have the windows rolled down and not turn on the air, even though it was above 30 degrees.
That was wrong. It was morally wrong.
Crazy to me. And I guess, I could have asked them to turn it on, but I didn't. But most in Europe would agree that air conditioning is needed in some situations, like hospitals in particular. But in many corners, it's still considered a weakness, something that those silly Americans do in excess. But it's just not really a sustainable opinion to have anymore. The article from Bloomberg here says that more than 200,000 people have died from heat across the EU over the past 4 years. That's a World Health Organization estimate. We know that in June in Spain, they saw 1,000 heat-related deaths. In Germany, the heat wave in June was responsible for more than 5,000 excess deaths. And it's what researchers call tropical nights, where temperatures remain above 20 Celsius, that are becoming increasingly common.
And you know what? It's becoming common here. And it never used to be. We would have maybe one night every 3 years that didn't go below 20. And now it's consistent here. This year, there's been all kinds of days that didn't hit 20 until 3, 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, and just barely below that. And it's very humid. And I would be not doing well without air conditioning.
Across Europe, the average of households with AC was only 19%. That's the average across Europe, 19%. In the US, it's 78%. Some places even have laws discouraging the technology. In Geneva, you need a permit to install air conditioning in most homes. If everyone had air conditioning, you'd see an explosion in electricity use, says the head of Geneva's energy regulator, and suggests that before AC, you should try other ideas that use less energy, which is true. Everyone should do those things.
Fans. You start with fans.
In the UK, yep. Yeah. Oh, many, many things. And like I said last week, if you're looking to keep your house cooler, there's always excellent articles online that can, give you lots of great tips. The article goes on here. In the UK, the Conservatives have adopted Make Britain Cool Again as a campaign slogan, accusing London's Labour Party Mayor Sadiq Khan of a de facto ban on the technology. Although that is not true, Khan has introduced rules that require developers and some homeowners to prove they've tried less energy-intensive methods before getting a permit for AC. So even in London, this is an issue. And yeah, it says most taxi drivers in Athens will have AC in their cars, but if you're in a smaller center where there's not as many tourists, it will be that thing I was just talking about, where the cab drivers will just keep the windows rolled down instead, even though it's super hot. And, hotels are starting to get on board. Most hotels in Greece do have air conditioning now. Greece can be a very hot country.
Yeah.
But this is new. This is only in the last couple of decades.
Wow. You were talking about your mother-in-law going to the United Kingdom, and she didn't have air conditioning in her hotel.
Exactly.
A couple weeks ago or a week ago, and there was a heat wave. And did she managed okay with all that?
Yeah. I mean, they're flying home today, so I'll find out. But, you have to somehow make do.
Yeah. Well, my son lives currently in a basement suite, so it's a basement of a house that he and a roommate live in. And it's consistently around the clock 27 Celsius, which is almost 81 Fahrenheit, and humid.
I'm surprised it's that high.
Yeah, me too. And I said, put a window fan on there at night to get it below 27. Yep. He said it'll just bring in the moisture, but he's wrong. He's wrong. It's 20 degrees and humid is better than 27 and slightly humid, because there is a dehumidifier down there, I guess, which some basements have. But that's unpleasant, and it's probably unprecedented. And, the person who lived there before said, no, it was never like this. So we're having a brutal summer here, and by our standards, not by a lot of other people's standards. The only good news is that our air hasn't reached 700 like some people on the American Air Quality Index. If you'd like to contact us, please do. Contact the Clean Energy Show about anything that's on your mind. Drop us an email at cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. You can also leave us a voicemail online at speakpipe.com/cleanenergyshow. And we don't always have video podcasts in the summer, but we do this week. If you want to check that out, it'll be on our Patreon page, patreon.com/cleanenergypod.
We are an independent podcast. We're powered by listeners like you. Please visit that patreon.com/cleanenergypod. You can support for as little as $1 a month and get lots of different perks there. Thank you so much for keeping independent climate journalism alive. All right, and one last quick story. The province of Alberta in Canada has decided to stop changing their clocks. So now most of Western Canada is going to just be on the same time all year round. It's going to be the daylight time, typically. But if Manitoba goes as well, so the Yukon, the Northwest Territories, Alberta, Saskatchewan, BC, they've all agreed to stop changing their clocks and stay on daylight time year round. Manitoba has said that they're considering it as well. So that would be all of Western Canada. And it's not necessarily a clean energy story, but sometimes energy savings is cited as a reason for why we started changing our clocks back in 1908. I've always been annoyed by the practice, so I think it's great that we're stopping this madness of changing the clocks. I don't know. It's something I've always been passionate about, but I'm always surprised that a lot of people don't really care. Like I'll explain why I think it's crazy that we should change our clocks twice a year. And then people who do change their clocks, they're like, yeah, I don't mind. It's fine.
Yeah, people just go with the flow. My wife said this morning as she was going out the door to work, like, I don't know why people just put up with the refinery, just go about their lives and put up with it. It's like, there's so much crap you put up with, people, that you shouldn't be putting up with. There is a movement, a bipartisan movement in the United States Congress to get rid of daylight savings time, but it's going to be hard because every state has its own opinion, and Canada kind of waits for the states because our economies are so entwined that we wait for them to do it before we will commit. I mean, it's only about 6 million, not 6 million, I would say, a quarter of the Canadian population that will be doing this. It's not all of Canada. It's a large chunk of Canada, but it's not a large chunk of our population. And yeah, I hope they do. If you have any opinions on it, drop us an email.
Yeah, and there's always statistics as well, like things like traffic accidents increase on the days.
Yeah, that's no fun. Getting an hour extra is good. We could do that every year, but it's not going to work out that way.
And there's other things like, I don't know, like a higher number of heart attacks or something. Like, it's kind of crazy.
It's not good. It's not good. But I mean, you have to think those heart attacks are inevitable anyway, I guess.
All right, coming up next, it's the lightning round.
Most of us are one good deal away from finally replacing that worn-out rug, fixing up the backyard, or getting the bedroom we actually want. Good news, that deal's almost here. Wayfair's Black Friday and July sale. Get up to 80% off area rugs and up to 60% off outdoor and bedroom furniture. Shop Wayfair's huge selection of styles and find the piece to fit your style, budget, and space. Plus, free shipping. Black Friday in July ends July 27th. Shop today at wayfair.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
It's time for the lightning round.
The lightning round is a fast-paced look at the latest headlines in climate, clean energy, and transportation.
Morgan Stanley says that more than half of Russian oil refinery capacity is down due to Ukrainian attacks. Russia is the world's second largest diesel exporter, and diesel is getting very expensive because of this, but China has an answer, and it is electrifying many of the vehicles that use diesel, like trucks, small, medium, large, all electrifying very quickly, and we are monitoring that. A majority of U.S. voters think extreme weather is due to the climate crisis. A study finds that is printed in The Guardian. So U.S. people aren't as dumb as the people who speak for them. You know what? They know what's going on. They know that this weird stuff is the climate crisis, and especially younger portions of the population, the younger you go. I mean, I'm not a spring chicken anymore. I'm pretty damn old, and I'm a Gen Xer. You're a Gen Xer. We know what's going on with the climate. Pretty soon we'll be the oldest people around, and everyone younger than us will be very angry about not doing something about climate change. This is from thetimes.com. On Sunday, American forces struck a nuclear power plant under construction in southern Iran, according to Tehran. So I guess the United States isn't as pro-nuclear as they say. Well, yeah, it's not a war crime to hit power infrastructure, which is pretty much what Russia does on a daily basis to Ukraine. But I think Ukraine is doing it back to them now on some level. China's expansion of batteries on their power grid can now shift 21% of its solar power to other hours in the day. So as much solar panels that there are solar power there is up in China, they have enough batteries already to shift 21% of all that power to other times of the day when they need it, when the sun goes down. CATL, the world's largest battery maker, China, says that they will mass produce sodium-ion batteries this year. Now, we've been talking about sodium-ion batteries for a couple of years now as they've started to commercialize it. And people would say, well, it's going to take years for them to do that. Well, no. It's not. They are ready to go with the first versions of these sodium-ion batteries, or maybe you could say, already, second generation, some improvements already. Advantages of sodium batteries over lithium batteries. Basically, you're swapping the lithium out for the sodium, and of course, sodium is salt. They use specific kinds of sodium, but there's a lot of it. There's just very easy to mine, very easy to get, very easy to acquire. So it's cheaper. There's less demand constraints, so it's cheaper. Lithium prices go down and up, but I think they're going up now. Cheap and abundant. So hard carbon instead of graphite are used in the batteries. Aluminum instead of copper, and copper is kind of expensive rare mineral, so it's cheaper. There's better safety with these batteries and better cold performance, which is good even for grid storage because around here it gets cold, and any place that has a winter it gets cold, and the performance of the batteries, of the lithium batteries, will go down, but not so much with the sodium versions of those batteries. And this will be particularly important for large-scale energy storage systems where energy density doesn't matter as much because they don't have as much energy in the volume as they do in lithium. Still, they're being used in cars as well. Sales of battery electric vehicles in Germany surged 78.2% in June 2026 over the year before. That's a lot for one of the world's largest automakers, countries. BEVs are up 40%, 48%, almost 50% in the first half of 2026 in Germany. And that is why Volkswagen is crapping their pants because they have botched their EV rollout, as all the major companies, including Japan. Like I was reading about Japan, their people, their higher ups are saying we're in a crisis here. We're worried about China. Guys, our podcast has been on for 6.5 years pretty much. You could have had a heads up on that if you'd only listened to us. Why aren't we living in gold-plated houses? We should know the answer to these questions before these guys do, who make a lot of money. Anyway, Chinese battery maker CATL is set to deploy 6.5 gigawatt hours. That's like 5 nuclear reactors for an hour stored in sodium-ion batteries across Europe this year, starting at the end of this year. 45% of Americans who install solar on their homes are now getting batteries to go with it, to store that solar. Because if you have too much solar in the middle of the day, it goes back into the grid, and the grid power operator pays you a little bit of money for it, maybe not so good. Well, now you can store it and use it yourself for free, and batteries are getting cheaper to use in your home. And they're going to continue to get cheaper, a lot cheaper, and a lot more common. And I think, 20 years from now, every home is going to have a battery in it, or most homes are going to have a battery in it, maybe 80% of them, because it'll just be a thing you do. Energy is going to get expensive if you don't do your own thing. 45% of Americans who install solar are now getting those batteries to go with it. This is from our local utility, Brian, Sask Power. And they have, 20 years ago, the carbon capture and storage for a coal plant. They were boasting about it being one of the first in the world. And of course, the international community has poo-pooed it because it is typically only getting 50% of that carbon captured. There's always downtime and problems, and it's been a very expensive way to make power. During the second quarter of this year, April 1 to June 30th, the carbon capture and storage facility at Boundary Dam Power Station was available 67.16% of the time. So 2/3 of the time from 50%. So that's a big improvement. From Reuters, this is mind-blowing. In China, it is now cheaper, currently as we speak, to take a taxi than it is to drive your own car that's paid off and sitting in your garage or whatever. It is because fares have dropped a lot as taxi drivers proliferate in a sluggish economy. So there's people who are joining the gig driving, Lyft, Uber type of gig economy, and the competition there, because there are so many of them, is making the fares drop. And then those people are driving electric vehicles, and gas is a little bit high because of the Iran conflict. So taxi trips have jumped 6% since the start of the war, earlier this year. And half of China's taxis are electric, and nearly 100% of them are electric in major cities where most of these things are taking place. And fuel use has dropped as taxi use climbs. That a quirk of China's transport structure, fares are falling despite gasoline prices rising. Imagine that.
Imagine.
What can electricity and clean energy do for you? Analysts say a flood of new drivers searching for work in a sluggish economy combined with cheap electric cars is depressing fares, in turn attracting passengers who want to save on higher petrol fuel costs. So they're ditching their own car and taking a taxi. A part-time Beijing ride-hailing driver surnamed Li says that fares have fallen 10 to 15% since he started 6 months ago. So they're going down. Taxi fares are going down. Competition is intense, the 36-year-old told Reuters in an electric vehicle charging station. The flip side, can be seen on social media since gasoline prices began rising in March. Hundreds of posts describe how travel by cab or rideshare is cheaper than driving. That's a thing. That's a weird thing that would shock a lot of people, I think. And finally this week, former NOAA employees have launched climate.us, a new independent website to preserve public access to reliable U.S. climate data after the Trump administration shut down climate.gov. So if you went to climate.gov, go to climate.us now. Created by former NOAA staff laid off during government cutbacks, the site restores easy access to climate dashboards, news, educational resources, maps, and data that millions once relied on, and is backed by crowdfunding, volunteers, and dozens of scientists. Climate.us aims to remain a nonpartisan source focused solely on climate science. Well, science is not partisan, and there's no room for partisanship in science anyway. Supporters say it fills a critical gap, helping educators, researchers, farmers, policymakers, and public access trustworthy climate information and understand its real-world impacts. And NPR has that story if you want to read more.
All right, well, that's our show for this week. You can find us on apps like TikTok, Instagram, and Blue Sky as Clean Energy Pod. Our email again, cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. And as always, remember to hit the follow or subscribe button, and you will get new episodes every week.
Remember to join the Clean Energy Patreon at patreon.com/cleanenergypod. We've got some new members. Thank you so much for joining this week. And thank you to our Patreon Clean Club executive members who get a shout out every week. Green Bastard, Brent Rowley, and Tiernan. And we'll see you all next week. Thanks for supporting the podcast.
See you next week.